Great skills again by him. Oh, marvellous goal by lowdown.
Welcome to the Rangers Journey.
Hello and welcome to your next episode of the Scouting and Tactics Show, episode 2. Maybe not quite such a catchy title this time, but it does what it says on the tin. We're here tonight to take you through one is a signing, we already know that. The other 3 are certainly heavy rumours, and we thought it'd be good just to have a bit of a dive into them. Obviously, tonight we are a man down. Stephen's on the injury table, so that's probably a sign of Rangers' season to come, knowing Rangers. But I have still got Doug and...
Get him sold to injury.
Get him sold. We'll give him a new contract, mate. That's how it works, isn't it?
That's true.
So obviously I have got with me tonight Doug and Dylan. I'll come to you first, Doug. How's things?
Yeah, it's not too bad, thanks. Not too bad.
Good. And Dylan, how are you doing, my friend?
Aye, all good, mate. All good.
Awesome. Thanks to those that have tuned in. As always, the pod is sponsored by the Bluebells Bar in Lanzarote. Great Rangers pub. Games on the TV. You can get podcasts, and a few of the guys at the Journal have been out there. Thoroughly recommend it. Really good place. Well looked after. So if you're in Lanzarote, get yourself along. Let's dive into it then. So I'm going to save the best, the one that we know, for last. I thought to start with, we'd have a look at Luke Graham. Now, I think just before we dive into him, one of the things that was obviously spoken about by Kavanagh was that kind of Scottish and SPFL bias that he wanted in his recruitment. I think Luke Graham quite obviously fits that bill, so, happy days. Doug, do you have any kind of dubiety about that concept that, basically if there's 2 players that are roughly similar, we'll look at the Scottish one? Do you think that's wise, or are you kind of different on that?
Well, obviously there's some benefits to bringing in Scottish players. So if you've got 2 options and they are virtually identical, then you probably are better going for the Scottish one. It's better for the European quotas if they fit into that. And a lot of people obviously talk about the identity of the football club, and there have been benefits to having Scottish players from that perspective. So, as I say, if there's 2 players, if they're virtually identical in terms of their skills and their qualities and the attributes that we need from them, then I'm all for going for that. It's as I say, it's something that I think a lot of people feel that we've maybe lost a little bit in recent years. So if you've nothing else to cut between 2 players, then that's as good a thing to choose to differentiate between them as any.
I'm just going to be honest with the audience here, right? I've made a total rookie error on the laptop, but it's not plugged in, and I got the old faithful battery warning. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to quickly jump off camera. Dylan, I'm going to hand over to you just to take us through the radar for Luke Graham and talk about his stats a wee bit with Doug, and I will be back in a sec.
Aye, so I think Doug, for me anyway, in the guys in the chat, that what stands out to me here is obviously he's in the 70th percentile of long passes, which is a pretty high number. It's not just obviously short passes; it's long passes as well. So he does take a lot of them, but I think he starts read like for me anyway, a little bit like John Suter before we signed him. His shots blocked are 87%. His aerial duels are pretty high in the 85 percentile. So, I mean, it does look like he's a sort of a last line defender on that. But I think he's got a lot more to his game than obviously what the stats showing. I think if anybody's seen him sort of this season, they'll agree with us that he's got a lot more to show than just sort of blocking shots and hitting long balls. He's got a bit of everything about him. And I think it's a really exciting signing if we do get it over the line. Like Dave said, he is Scottish. So it would be good to get him in because he understands, hopefully, the league and what it means to I don't mean to play for Rangers, but to play what we expect from Scottish players or from Rangers players. I think that anybody that plays in Scotland or is Scottish understands that, even if they're not a supporter, they know how big a job it is. So it's an interesting one. So looking forward to it if it does come through. What about you, Doug? What do you take for the stats? The radar.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, there's a couple of areas here that I think are particularly beneficial. Progressive passing out of the defence, I think is a good area for the way that we're looking to play. Obviously, aerial duels is going to be a big one for Scotland. We're going to face a lot of teams that will put in crosses, so one of the things like that. Like you said, you've got the things like the shots blocked and maybe long passes hinting to that kind of more siege style defence. And John Stewart gets a lot of criticism for quote unquote just. I can't get my bunny ears into shot here. For quote unquote just being a siege defender, but I've been on a bit of a rant about this in general. Despite not caring about Arsenal in the slightest, they've been getting a lot of rip lately for being boring and being quote unquote anti-football, which has triggered me since the Walter Smith days, because I don't understand when being good at defending became such a terrible thing. And I feel like John Stewart gets a little bit of a bad rap in that regard. Sometimes you need a siege defender. You need someone who is all action, just blood and thunder, throws their body in front of the line. The one I always remember for Suter is against Fenerbahce. Is it just before the end of this first half of the game we played there? A boy takes a shot in and it goes in and it hits him square in the forehead, and he just kind of flops backwards. And it was a perfect kind of example of that kind of style of defense. And if he can bring that and a little extra on top, then I think that's a real bonus in terms of. I see Luke Graham as being a player who could be the long-term replacement for John Suter. Obviously, we've just given him a bit of an extension. And if you bring in Luke Graham and maybe another one or two defenders that are going to be more nailed on first teamers, you give the Luke, who obviously is a younger player, a bit of time to then develop, work his way into the team, get into the surroundings. Because sometimes we've said in the past with young players who've been guilty of throwing them in at the worst times, like Leon King, McCausland, coming in when we're at our stretch. And it would be really nice to see us actually take a young player and bring them into the team in a really controlled way that allows them to develop, maybe make a few mistakes that aren't catastrophic, and really grow into the best player that they can be. And like you said, I think he's got a lot of potential to be a player that can do that.
You back, Dave?
That's fair, Doug. Yeah, I'm back. Plugged in, good to go. I think one of the things that interests me about him, and something that we've been maybe missing a wee bit, is the aerial duel side of his game. So obviously we can see he's in the sort of top quarter for aerial duels per 90 v 1 per 90. I think for a long time, some of our defenders along the way have been a bit bullied when it comes to domestic football, especially, some of the lower teams in the league that potentially have, quite big mobile strikers getting about, making a nuisance of themselves. Doesn't seem like he's faced by this at all, which I think could be good. I think the other thing I picked up on, Doug, was a really interesting point about how we introduce these people to the team, because I think last season we were actually kind of lucky in a way, because Fernandez came into that team, and overall, I mean, yeah, he had some moments, but overall I would say he did a really good job. But there's potentially an argument the way he ended up getting thrown in that, that could have gone very differently as well, and that could be another player like Leon King, as you said. So yeah, I think it's really important that when we do bring these people in, we're doing it in the right way. And as I said, I think his aerial duels for me do stand out there as something that we can use. Looking at what we've done here is we've got a comparison. And I say this was all Doug's magic, so thank you for putting it together, Doug. We've done it for Graham and we've done it for Shankland. And what we've done is taken a comparison against an existing member of the side. So obviously with Luke Graham, the kind of obvious one to do it against is Fernandez. Now, I think looking at the comparison there, it's pretty clear to see that actually Fernandes is the better defender, but that is also within the teams that they're playing, and I think that has to be a nuance here. Fernandes is playing in a Rangers side, and I mean, sometimes last season that didn't mean an awful lot. That other time, a lot of the time, they were still on top of the game. Luke Graham is obviously not playing for Rangers, so he's, he's put under pressure a lot more. He maybe hasn't got the same quality of players around him. So, Doug, I'll come back to you for this one. I just want you to kind of start us off talking through some of these, and it's pretty obvious what they mean, but just where you think that he could provide a benefit.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, I picked Fernandes here because I thought that there's a pretty good comparator. Both young players coming into their teams and being pretty solid, and although, like you say, Fernandes does sort of come out on top overall in terms of these metrics, they're not by much in the grand scheme of things. For quite a few of these, I had to go back and double remind myself which one was actually the bigger bar, because they were kind of that close. And so I think that says a lot about the potential for Graham coming in. I really like that he also has scored a good amount of goals. Fernandes there, 100% percentile for goals from a centre back, which was really good. He came in. He's the first defender in a while who's actually contributed a decent amount of goals, obviously with his height. And to see Graham also have a decently high percentile for that, I think is really good, because I want both of my centre backs in any Rangers team to be chipping in probably with at least 5 goals each from corners across the course of a season. And as I say, he looks like he can do that. The one that surprised me is he's actually quite high in the assists level there, as Fernandes doesn't have any assists, whereas Graham's got high there. So I mean, that's another sort of string to his bow as well. We're looking to be the dominant team, and to get a few extra assists from a centre back is a big bonus on top of the defensive aspects of his game. And you can see, as I say, in that sort of bottom section where the defensive stats are, although Fernandes is pipping them to the majority, they're very close. They're very similar in terms of their abilities, and good level of recoveries, interceptions, their tackles are good. They're both got a lot of touches, getting on the ball, which is something that Graham would need to do more for us than he would at Dundee. So I think there's a potential there, because the other thing to consider as well is for the potential for them to play together and develop as a partnership. As there's still the chance that we sell Fernandes if someone comes in with a really good bid, because obviously there has been some interest there. And if we sell Fernandes, looking at this, Graham could be a really excellent replacement.
Just want to come to you on those passing stats. I think it's a really good point here. I'm just curious, does that worry you at all? Our centre backs are expected to be fairly ball dominant. They're supposed to be able to, play those passes. And yeah, I get the 6 or certainly last season, the 6 was expected to drop to receive. So we're not talking lots of long distance passes, but all the same, would that worry you, or do you think that's something that would improve because he was at a higher level of club?
Just for me, Dave, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, mate. No, I don't think it's worrying. Fernandes' successful passes stat could be padded by the fact that he just goes left back to centre back, pops into the middle and gets it back. So it's not like it's like sort of breaking the line passes we're looking at here. It's just successful passes made. So I wouldn't worry too much into that. Also, Fernandes is playing with better players. So the stats should show that a little bit for me that he should be above Graham in this chart. But I definitely think that there's room for Graham to improve. You can see obviously his assist is pretty high. His chances created is higher than Fernandes, but Fernandes got bigger. Big chance created is higher. He's got more duels won, but then obviously the most of the defensive metrics stand to Fernandes. But I think that playing in a, like you said, Dave, like a ball dominant team, hopefully he can incorporate the sort of shorter passes into his game. more and still keep a hold of his long passes accuracy and stuff like that. So I definitely think it's an exciting one.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think the other thing to remember about Luke Graham is he is only 22. So, he has got a lot of development still to come. Okay. This one's going to be fun. Right, Dylan, I'm going to come back to you for this. What's your thoughts on signing players from the English Championship? Because it seems to split our fan base something chronic.
Honestly, I'm torn on it because some have been good and some have been terrible. And I just think that it's an easy market for scouts to go into and say, "Oh, he done well in this league, so it must relate to going and playing for Rangers." And I just don't think that correlates because in Sunderland, I'm assuming you're going to Daniel here. Sunderland are a decent club. They're a big club as well. And so were Leeds with Joe Rothwell. But I think that when you come up here and you have to perform week in, week out, there's no place in the team for a player that's going to hide. And I think we've seen that maybe with Rothwell. I don't know if his legs went a bit, but everybody was saying that was a great signing. And then they come up here and they looked like a shadow of the player. I don't know if he maybe didn't want to be here. There's loads of different factors to put into it, Dave. But I'm torn. I think that everybody's opinion will be different on it. Do you know what I mean? And you can only really make your mind up once the player's been here. I don't think it's a blanket statement to say that everybody for the Championship won't work. But again, he's on a free. He was the captain of Sunderland, so you would think it would be an okay signing to go and make, even if it is coming for the Championship. But again, we've seen it happen time and time again where it's not worked out with sort of Todd Cantwell and Joe Rothwell, even though Cantwell was a decent player. But so again, I do have my worries about it, but I'm not against it. It's not that we're going to spend £6 million, £5 million on a player and try to bring him up, and then it doesn't work out. Then I would be a wee bit more apprehensive. But no, I think it makes a bit of sense.
So Dylan's getting splinters in his arse. What about yourself, Doug? Are you going to sit on the fence like Dylan, or are you going to tell us what you think?
I mean, in terms of the whole England thing, I've said it multiple times. There's no bad market. There's just bad players. There's plenty of players we bought from down south who have been decent to good, for all the ones that haven't. When it comes to this one in particular, I think he's at in terms of sort of how people are viewing him. I think he's at a slight disadvantage because of his loan. He didn't play an awful lot. So I don't think from what I've kind of gathered. Honestly, I knew nothing about him until the link, so I've only looked into him recently myself. But from what I can gather, I don't think he really suited like Ipswich's style of play. And I kind of get the feeling he was brought in as a if we need him kind of loan. So he didn't really play much. And when he did play, as I say, I'm not sure he really fitted their style of play perfectly. So that kind of puts him on the back foot for people who are looking at his most recent football. Whereas when I look at it in terms of, technically, in terms of his ability as a player, he looks like he's got, a perfectly decent level of technical ability. Now that, can go either way, as we well know. We brought in players like Joe Rothwell, who people have compared him to, which obviously immediately puts Rangers fans' backs up. Joe Rothwell, on the face of it, had all the technical ability to be able to be a Rangers player, and at times showed some of that ability, but obviously it didn't work out for him. So that's only one aspect. So I'm then looking at the other side of it and going, okay, well, what is it we're looking for this window? We're looking for experience. We're looking for players that have won things. We're looking for players who can help with the mentality. And this is a player that's been at Sunderland was at Sunderland for a long time. It's his boyhood club. He's been their captain, and he's been with them and performed with them through multiple promotions from League One to the Championship, working their way up to the Championship and then getting into the Premiership. So to me, that shows he's got that ability to go again, to work, to develop, and to build with his team. So those to me are all positive aspects in terms of mentality. So at the end of the day, I think there is something to the idea that it potentially comes down to the mindset of the player. I think we have had players who have come here thinking, "Oh, this will not be as difficult as it's going to be," and they failed. Whereas if you get players who have got the right mentality and they work hard, then you can see successes. So it all comes down to which one it is. What I would say though is he's very low risk, because if he's going to be free, then the worst case scenario, like Joe Rothwell, although didn't work out as a signing, we didn't really lose an awful lot because he wasn't expensive and we were able to sell him. Dan Neil will be easily sellable in 6 months or 12 months' time if he doesn't work out. So if we've bought him for free and then end up having to punt him for 200k in 6 months because it hasn't worked out, okay, yes, it's not great because you don't want a signing to be a failure, but I think it's low risk in that we're not going to be having a huge outlay. He might have a bigger wage, Scott, but if he's free, then that offsets that. So I wouldn't really be too concerned with that either. That being said, I don't know if he'll necessarily command a massive fee. And I think we're in a strong place. I like to think under the new ownership, we're not just going to give players big wages for the sake of it because we'll go elsewhere. So if he demands too much, then hopefully that won't be a problem. But yeah, that's kind of where I am. And I'm not raging at the idea of it, but because I think it's a fairly low risk signing if we make it.
Fair enough, mate. Fair enough. And just because I accused Dylan of getting splinters in his backside there, I have to say I am very much with yourself on that, Doug. I'm not opposed to shopping in the championship inherently because it's the championship. I do question the level of scouting that goes into some of these players and if it is good enough. I think this is... So Phil's obviously popped this in, and I think it's a really good point, but I would just counter that with so did Michael Beale, and he signed Sam Lammers. So, yeah, I take the whole kind of going and meeting the players. For me personally, I do think it's a good thing, but I think you also need to be confident that the person is doing that scouting and going and meeting them is a good judge of character because, as I said, someone sat across the table from Sifu, thought he'd be a good signing. Sat across the table from the Lammers, thought he'd be a good signing. Neither of which had the mentality for us. So, yeah, agree to an extent, but as I say, depends on who's doing the scouting for me. So, let's just dive into Dan Neil then. He's obviously 24. He was at Ipswich on loan, as the guys have said. His boyhood club is Sunderland. Looking at his per 90 stats, so I guess what jumps out at me here, defensive dual win rate is pretty good, if we're being honest. These are older stats, though. Progressive runs, again, reasonably good. So I guess there's two parts to this. One, and I'll come to you on this one, Dylan. How different is he from what we've got already? And someone has said that in the comments as well. But I think for me, we're talking about running, and we're talking about defensive duels, right? Is that not just Connor Barron?
That's what it looks like, just at first glance. But again, I think his dribbles are higher than Connor Barnes, 77 percentile. His progressive runs is really a big one for me, 85 it says here. So whether I'm assuming that's off the ball, his progressive runs. So, and I think that's a massive problem with this Rangers team, and it has been for a while, that we don't move enough off the ball. I've said it on here a million times. There's nobody running into space. It's all ball to feet. I said it last week. So again, that's a good thing. But if that progressive run gets coached out of him and Daniel wants him to come short and take the ball to feet, then again it becomes a Connor Barnes type player. So I think there has to be that fine balance of letting the players go and express themselves and play the way they would play, but in a structure. And again, that concerns me with the manager. But I don't think it's. I think it's like, we're looking at it, and again, we've seen highlights and clips, and it's always the best at the pick of it. But it's like Connor Barnes, maybe defensive work, maybe a little below that, but with a wee bit more going forward. And I think that's what you need, especially that's what we're lacking this season. And some of the clips that I watched from him, he was dropping in between the two centre backs and taking the ball, and then he was driving forward with it. So again, it's just one, Dave, that we're going to need to wait and see if it does materialise and how he adapts to playing in our league and having to win every week. But again, like I said, I'm not against it because, like Doug said, he's only 24. It's not like we're saying a 30-year-old Joe Rothwell and putting him on 30 grand a week or whatever it was he was on. And again, transfer market value is $4.5 million. So even if you do take that, having for a year doesn't work out, I'm sure you'll get $1 million or $2 million for him. So I don't think it's a bad deal for us. But I do understand the comparisons of, is it too similar to what we have?
Yeah. Okay, what I'm going to do real quick is we've got some video on Dan Neil. It's just a few wee clips of him, so I'm just going to pop these up for us just now. So here's one of these progressive runs. This peak Scotty Arfield for me. Let him go. Whack. Good stuff. And then just lastly, we've got another one, progressive run here. So let's just take that down. So let's unpack a few things with Dan Neil then. I think firstly, a worry I have, and I'll let you guys comment on it in just a second, but one of the worries I do have is he's got a bit of a Max Aarons feel to me. Obviously not position or stats wise, but he's someone that was good and he's gone through a bit of a tough spell. And potentially, you know, it could be an inspired signing. You bring him in, you get him into that 24-25 form, everyone's laughing. Then the alternative is he comes in and he is just like Max Aarons, barely gets into the team, struggles to kind of recapture that early form. So I think there's considerations in this if we do it. I do take the point it's relatively low risk, given the fact that he's on a free, but at the same time, it's still going to take up space in our squad. Just looking at the videos there, as I said, that second one with the goal running in behind the defender, I think that's what you've been talking about on both of these episodes now, Dylan, where, you know, we don't have that person trying to go beyond. So, you know, there's potentially some interesting stuff in there. Doug, I come to you on this first. So we've looked at his stats, we've looked at a few clips of him. I will give him credit. In those clips, you know, he's driving forward, which too often we see our midfielders turn back. So I guess there is an element of that. Do you think Dan Neil would be a good signing? And if so, why? Or if not, why as well, to be fair?
From what I know at the moment, I think so. I mean, that's just someone talking about needing being too similar to what we've got. I'm not sure that he is. I mean, from what I've gathered, he is more of that kind of playmaker, the type of player that the Stephen Davis, for lack of a better, just to give it an all-rounded description. That's the kind of impression I've gotten as the type of player that he is. So, you know, if that's true, then for me, that's exactly what we're missing. I thought it was interesting. If you bring up his slide again, just for a quick second, something I found interesting is his heat map there. His heat map is very constrained, and the hottest area is smack bang in the middle of the pitch. So again, for me, that backs up this idea that he's the guy that's going to, you know, he dips back a little bit to pick up the ball and he moves forward a little bit to get the ball forward, but he's not like moving out. Like if you compare that a lot of the time to someone like Raskin's like absolutely all over the pitch. And has, you know, his heat map tends to be a little bit more skewed to one side or another, depending on where he is in a game. Whereas like that overall heat map that's a guy that's sitting in smack bang in the middle of the team and potentially orchestrating things. So I think, from that perspective, it feels like, as I say, I've only just gotten to know him over the last week or so. So I'm not claiming to be an expert, but as I say, if he seems to be the type of player that we have been missing. So from that perspective, I think, and again, factoring in the cheap price and everything else, it seems like it'd be a decent signing. Plus, I'm assuming we're also going to let some midfielders go. So even if there are some similarities, how much will that matter depending on who ends up going out the door as well? I want to just touch on, there's a question there in the chat here from Scott, asking why was he deemed not good enough for the EPL. I don't know if he was deemed not good enough. It was just Sunderland had the opportunity to bring in Granit Xhaka, who plays in the same position. So it's not necessarily that I think that Daniel wasn't good enough. It's just that Granit Xhaka is better and has a wealth of experience. Which, if you've got the opportunity to bring in a player like that from Sunderland's point of view, because Sunderland had a very young team and they needed someone that had, kind of similar to ourselves, actually. They needed someone who had a wealth of experience, who'd won things in the game, and who could help guide the team and bring the young players forward. And Xhaka was that player for them. And he had a great season, along with the Sunderland in general. So I'm not sure if it was necessarily that they thought he wasn't good enough. It's just that they had the opportunity to bring in, a top level player, and obviously, you play the best that you've got available to you.
That's fair. Okay. Question from the audience. What? All day, every day for me. We'll get into the reasons why, but just before we do, Doug, Watt or Neil, if you had a choice and you could only sign one, who would you sign?
I'd probably say Watt, just because I know him better. I've seen him play more. I watched him throughout this season because Motherwell were playing so well, so I watched a few of their games. So I think he's got a lot of positive traits. Knowing the league is obviously a benefit. He's not going to be hugely expensive. I'm sure Motherwell will want a decent price for him, but he's not hugely expensive. I don't know if he counts as, I know he's Scottish, but I don't know if he counts. Did he come up through Scotland, or did he come up in his younger days in England?
He was down south, wasn't he?
So he may or may not qualify for the European thing. But yeah, I would. I'd pick Watt simply because I know more about him. I've seen him, and I think he's a good player.
Yeah, and Dylan, what about yourself, mate?
Watt, hands down.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Okay, cool. Let's dive into Elliot Watt then. So he's another one. He's not going to be too much a surprise to most fans. You've probably seen him at least 4 times last season, if not a bit more, if you've been watching some of the Motherwell games. I think there's a lot to like here. I definitely think this guy fits the bill as a playmaker a bit more than Dan Neil does. I think Neil's almost a wee bit of everything. It's like the old kind of jack of all trades, master of none, basically. Whereas I think Elliot Watt is just an out-and-out playmaker for me. Passes, progressive passes, both really high. Key passes are still good, but he's not scared to get in about the defensive side of the game either. Dylan, Elliot Watt, what jumps out to you here if you just had to pick one metric?
Put me in the spot, Dave. Probably progressive passes. I think that's the main one. So obviously that's progressing the ball up the field. I mean, it sounds daft, but I don't think, again, Rangers players, any of them, do it enough. It's all sort of side to side and very safe. Whereas you'll see with the clips that he's not afraid to go and thread the ball through the lines and trying to find his teammates. But again, and I always go back to it can also be how their manager wanted them to play. So there is movement off the ball, there is that option there. And if you put him into that Rangers team that season there, I don't think the stats would be as high because the players aren't moving, they're not available enough for him to go and play those passes. So again, I think there's a bit of both, but definitely a player who's not going to be scared to go excuse me, to go and try those passes time and time again, even if they don't come off. I think if you pair him with someone like a Conor Barn who'll go and do the dirty work in the hard yards and go and win the ball, then you've got a good partnership there in the middle of the park. The only problem is then is the physicality, and I know that Daniel, we think he's pretty big on that due to the players that he's signed. So I did pair next to Chukwani. So there's room there, but I think that would be my main signing over anybody else that we've looked at so far.
Yeah, and Doug, I think this is a really interesting point just to real quick kind of dive into here. So Watt and Neil lack physicality unlike other role signings. So I think that's true, firstly. Although, clearly Watt isn't afraid to defend, but he's not quite as big. But do you so do you think that we need someone like a Watt that can pass the ball, progress the ball in that side? And if necessary, do you deploy like a Chukwani or a Barron beside him to try and give that wee bit of extra physicality in the middle of the pitch there?
Yeah, I think that's that's kind of, if you're going to play, for example, 3, that's what you want. You want someone that can break up the play, someone that can then take the ball and progress the play. And then have your more attacking midfielder that's supporting the wingers and the striker in particular. Or if we're going to play the 4-2-2, you have your playmaker and your more defensive player, and then your sort of attacking mid and support striker ahead of them. So, and it also depends on the game as well. Like I remember we had a long period of time when we were playing the 4-2-3-1. Where there was loads of discussion about whether we needed to be having to have 2 sitting midfielders against half of the league, and I think there's a point to that as well, where you want to have a selection of players with different attributes so that you can make subtle changes. You have maybe you have your overall system that you want to be familiar with and well drilled, but within that you want to be able to make small changes. Personnel is one of the ways you can do that, so that maybe in Europe you play Conor Barron or Chukwani beside him, whereas in some of the games against lower division players you could get away with playing like a Watt and a Diamande, and maybe go more aggressive with your players in front of them. So having those options gives you a lot of benefit. In terms of the physicality aspect, I know Neil looks like he's a pretty kind of small kind of guy. Watt is a bit bigger. Physicality can be worked on. You can bulk up. The grade A gold star example that I always give is Cristiano Ronaldo, who came into Man United as a little whippet type of player and just got smashed off the ball a lot. He trying to do all his tricks. Once he calmed his tricks down, he went away one summer and he came back built into the kind of the physique we all think of when we think of him now, and it totally changed the type of player that he was, because now he could now give as good as he got. Still fell over a little bit too much, but he could start to fight that physical battle in England, and he went on and had his best seasons. So there's nothing to say that a player can't come in and then the club go, right, we want you to strengthen up a bit, add a little bit of muscle to yourself, a bit of bulk to yourself, so that you can be aggressive in tackles, and when someone tries to knock you off the ball, you can stand up to that. And that's something that with their diet and exercise and the focus that they should be given to their job, that they can do over the course of a summer.
Right, mate. And just to touch on this comment as well, I actually like Just a lot as well. This was purely based on strength of rumour, and obviously it's about stronger rumour that we're looking at what as it is to Just. But I'd quite happily take both of them if Motherwell are in the market for selling. Let's have a look at a couple of clips from Watt. So I'll just push them. Let me just pull this back because it went a bit haywire. So I think most of us remember that one. Okay, so again, not a huge amount there, but I think the aim with that one was to sort of highlight that passing ability. And I think, as I said at the top of the video, for too long, what we've had is we play the ball up to one of our midfielders. They have a bit of a look, turn around and pass it back to the defenders again, who then quite often last season where they're lumping it over the midfield up to attack. I think someone that we need to basically we need someone that can just grab control of that game and run the game from that position. Dylan, do you think what is that person?
I just think that in those clips here that you saw, he sort of took out two lines of defence with the first line and then the midfield as well. But like I said, Dave, I said it before, it also comes to the point where the players are in that position and playing in between the lines, so it makes it that bit easier. But the second clip that we watched basically gives like three players the eyes as if he's going to pass out wide, and then it's an all-out pass, and he just finds the player again who's in that position. So I think that's something that we don't have. We don't have that in our midfield, so it'd be a massive upgrade in there. But yeah, definitely, it's probably the most exciting one. And like you said, with Just, I think that would be a massive one as well. They two in your team would the quality of player instantly goes up. But yeah, they passes, mate, is something that we've been missing for a couple of years now.
Right. Let's do it. I'm surprised Scotty's no in the comments. He's got a wee Shankland mask now for himself. Keeps sending pictures wearing the thing. It's quite creepy, but Lawrence Shankland, folks, probably doesn't need an awful lot of introduction. We've known him for years. He's been rumoured for years. I think there's probably a bit of consternation amongst the fans that we didn't sign him last summer when he was available on a free. Rumour has it he was available on a free this summer as well for us, but that's a different story. Russell Martin or Kevin Felwell, depending which rumour you believe, said no thank you. And that was it. He then went on, helped Hearts with a title push, ultimately finished above us. I'd say Lawrence Shankland's goals were a huge part of that. But I think as we can see on the data here, he's not just a poacher. So you look at the passes as an example, he's in the 100th percentile for that amongst strikers. That isn't a Chris Boyd type that just gets himself to the 6-yard box and taps him in. That's someone that's contributing a bit more. Doug, what do you make of this? Because to me, it's a really strong radar there all round.
Yeah, I mean, I think that describes Shankland as a player. He's a very well-rounded player. He offers a lot. When Hearts needed to, they were able to drop him into a more deep-lying position, and he contributed from there as well. Like you say, Lawrence Shankland, he's been a no-brainer signing for a number of years. In terms of all the things I mentioned previously that we want out of a player, experience and knowing the league, knowing and understanding Rangers, obviously being a fan. And, this is a player that for Hearts has scored 20 or more goals in 3 out of the last 4 seasons. So, he's got that repeatability as well. I think I mentioned in our first episode. Any player can have a great season, but great players have good seasons after seasons after seasons. And Shankland's done that, at multiple levels. From when he got 34 goals in like 41 games for Ayr. So, he's been doing it for years at whatever level he's played. So, and you see that reflected, as I say, in the strength of his radar there. He's got a good level of skills, a lot of things. He'll come in, he'll provide competition. It'll be interesting. I think there's. It'll be interesting to see if he comes in and becomes the automatic starter. Given we've got obviously an expensive young Chermiti who played reasonably well. What combinations will we go for? Will it spell the end of Miovski? Will he just be an option with Miovski? it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, as I say, like you said, I don't think we need to go into huge depth with Long Shankland. People have been watching him, admiring him, and wanting him for quite a while.
I think. Okay, let's play some video just real quick, just a wee bit of a reminder what we've signed. So just fire that up just now.
Have you frozen there, Dave? I think he might have done. I was like when we went to. Oh wait, something's happening.
Wave. Minor technical supposed to run that back. Best finish with that last goal. I quite enjoyed that one. No, so I think there, right, we've seen Shankland scoring a few goals, but I think each one is slightly different. So I'd suggest with his first one, it's probably just no backlift, just a clean shot. The second one is obviously shot well outside the box. That's gone.
You still there, Dave? I think we're having a bit of trouble hearing you. You're kind of breaking up a bit. And I don't know about you, Dylan, but I didn't see any of those Shankland shots. You might have been the only one to have been able to see those. Right. They were on screen, but they were like totally blurred.
Privileged.
So
yeah, let me just drop it up again if it's going to work. Can you see it this time?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's working a bit better this time.
Hey.
Yeah, Dave, I've no blame, mate.
It's died again. Saw the finish on that one at least.
This time.
We saw the first one and the last one.
That's the main thing. Okay. To be fair, so I think each of them showed something slightly different about his game. As I say, that first one, there was no backlift on his shot. The second one was about his positioning and being in the right place to pick up the ball. Defender completely misjudged it. The third one, again, positioning and intercept was really good, I thought. Are you chuckling at, Dylan?
The comments.
Can you not hear me again?
No, they're absolutely ripping me. Need to pedal harder, Dave. The clips are reminding me. The clips are reminding me of us defending.
Aye, okay.
Brilliant.
That's what it is, mate. Aye, so Dylan, Lawrence Shankland, as we said, it's no just the kind of goal scoring. There is more to his game, and I think for those that could see the video, pretty much me, by the sounds of it, that demonstrated it. But just tell us the kind of variation of Shankland. What are we actually getting with him? Because we've seen it on TV, we've seen it in person, but from that football tactical side of things, what are we getting with Lawrence Shankland?
I think, and I might have said it before, but I think that, and before everybody jumps on me here, I think he's like the Scottish Harry Kane. No sort of ability wise, but that's the type of style that he plays. He drops in deep, he links play, he can header, he can finish with both feet. And I think that it's a sign of a good player when, and I've said it before, his shot selection is more often than not always the correct one. And some of the clips here, he just sort of swivels and hits it. But it's low and hard in the corner. He doesn't have to look at the goal. There's another one where the ball's on the left-hand side of his body and he can't quite get his left foot to it because he's taking a step. So he just takes it with the outside his right foot. And again, it's clever finishing. And when you've got that type of mental ability to decide what shot you're going to take and to execute it, your passing then becomes very, very good as well, because you're essentially just shooting towards a target. So that's why his passing is very good, because his shot accuracy is very good. And like I say, he drops in. He's strong. He's played in the league for a long time, so it's not like Chermiti came up and had to find his feet the first maybe month or two, trying to find out with the physicality of the league. So he's already got all that in his locker. And again, you've seen the goals that he scored for Scotland. I thought they were really, really good as well. And again, it's just that instinctive. If he gets a chance, 9 times out of 10 he takes it. But I think pairing them with someone like Chermiti, he can come down sort of into the midfield and link the play. And we can have Chermiti running behind. Then it's a good signing. It's much more than what we've had the last couple of seasons.
I think the other thing that'll be pretty telling, hopefully, as the season goes on, is Chermiti for all his fee, for all he's been in the EPL, yada yada yada. He's still a young boy, right? He's got a lot of development to go, and to be fair, Shankland could be a very good player to pair him with to try and improve some of his traits. Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a great signing. I think the missing video that only I saw proved that, but you'll just hate to wonder what it was. Nah, I'm joking. Right, before we wrap up, let's have a look. Yeah, go for it, Doug.
Just about to I totally want to back up Dylan with what he said about Harry Kane there. I've thought that as well. Very similar style of play. And further to that, one of the things I think that helped Hearts be so successful was that Braga was kind of like the Diaz to Shankland's Kane, and that you had someone else that was able, when Shankland would drop, you had that other player coming in, and their combinations were so successful, and both of them chipped in with huge amounts of goals. And so I just wanted to totally back up Dylan on that, because I think not only is that a good reference point, but as I say, I think that was one of the things that made Hearts so successful, was that they had a kind of combo that kind of like, obviously, again, we're not saying they're anywhere near the sphere of those players, but they're like the Scottish football version, if you like, of that. And that's why I think Hearts, one of the reasons anyway, Hearts were so successful this year.
Great. Okay, just before we wrap up, we've got a wee special treat for Aaron, who usually watches the pod. He thinks Mr. Miovski is deadly. Nah, I'm joking, right? This is just another comparison that Doug put together for us, but it does kind of show that we're getting a bit of an upgrade here, I would suggest. So, there we go. So literally the only metric, and it's no by a lot, but the only metric that Miovski is superior in last season was the duels. Now, I do need to caveat that, right? Obviously, Lawrence Shankland played a lot more minutes than Miovski, even with his injury, but all the same, for me, quality shows through. Doug, just tell us here, what would you say are the two most important things that...
You kind of cut off at the end of the day, but in terms of the things that Shankland has over Miovski, I think the big thing that Aaron pushes is Miovski's conversion rate, and he's got I believe it's the best conversion rate in the league. And you can kind of see that in terms of goals. They're despite Miovski having played much less minutes, his goals aren't that far away in terms of percentile. So I think, Miovski's come out in I originally said, I can't remember if it was I think it was on the Shankland breaking pod we did, that I thought that it could spell the end for Miovski. But, Miovski's since come out and said he wants to fight for his place. And if we're going to play, 4-2-2-2 and therefore have two up top, then you want to have four strikers to give us options. So Miovski could still do a job for us. But what Shankland brings, and what I think this more shows, is that Shankland's overall play, and just as an overall contributor to a match in terms of phases and different areas of the pitch, I think that's where Shankland comes up on top. There's probably a good argument that they would make a good combination. Maybe play Miovski up top and you can have Shankland off him doing more of the hard work. But the big thing is it's just good to have options, and it's good to have players that have the potential to provide quality. What you want from your player, if we say, for example, let's say Shankland becomes our number one pick striker, what you want therefore behind him is someone who can come in and the quality doesn't drop hugely. And Miovski could potentially offer that in terms of if we need someone who'll score goals, because he did score a few goals when he came in off the bench, and so there could definitely be a use there for him.
I'd agree with that. Okay, that's us for tonight, folks. 4 kind of strongly rumoured signings. Obviously, not all of them are going to come through. I think for me, I'm very much with what Dylan said. If I had to pick one that I would take, bearing in mind we've already signed Shankland, it would definitely be Watt. But, there's some strong contenders there either way. Obviously, Graham contributes to the homegrown quota. Neil, a bit of a gamble, but, if it pays off and he does recapture that form, could be a really good signing as well. So definitely one to watch as we go through the summer window. For now, we're going to leave it there. We will be back next week. Not quite decided what we're going to look at yet. So if you have got any suggestions, just chuck it on as a comment to the video. We do review them. We'll see. We might be able to do something around it. As always, the pod is sponsored by the Bluebells Bar in Lanzarote. Great Rangers pub. Get yourself along. And just want to say thanks very much for coming on and for the slides you put together, Doug.
Well, always a pleasure.
And Dylan, again, thank you very much for coming along, lending us your expertise. Appreciate it as always, mate.
No worries, mate. I don't know about expertise, but you're welcome.
All right, cheers, guys, and cheers for everyone that tuned in. As always, if you do like what you've seen, please do like and subscribe to the channel. But for now, every night's a Rangers Journal.